Do not work for free. Hey everybody, this is Alessandro. Welcome back to my channel. If you're reading the title of this video, probably you're thinking, okay, now Alessandro wants to talk about, not doing an internship for free, especially at the beginning of your career, you shouldn't work for a small project for free, blah, 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 blah. That's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking something different. And what I want to say that is if you've been working in the industry, okay, for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 6, 7 years, right? And at the end of the day, after all this time, you do not have any actual money in your bank account, you have not anything to show for, or even worse, you have very little money maybe, but you have debts or stuff like that. Well, then you're eventually gonna be in deep trouble, okay, guys? And I'm talking seriously here. Today's a video with a more serious tone. I know this topic is not really fun for anybody, but I think it needs to have more and more visibility. And the reason why is because in the last year, I cannot talk with more and more people. Actually, the number of people I'm talking about this topic is increasing over and over, especially since I've done a few videos about financial in animation and stuff like that, where basically people are struggling because they're working for a few years. They don't have much money saved on the side, right? And they're living by themselves, they're renting and everything. And suddenly, something happened in the company gets shut down, they close the project, then they need to fire people, they lay off. Maybe those people are not just good enough in what they're doing at the moment, and the company doesn't like their work, they fire them. Anything can happen, right, guys? And it's nothing to do about the COVID and anything, because COVID is not the only reason why people lose their job, right? And so when this happens, people tend to get really in trouble, because now they're like, hey, I have rent to pay and everything, I can only survive until next month, I'm basically living paycheck by paycheck. And as I mentioned before, guys, like until in this last year, quite a lot of people talk to me, reach to me, having this kind of trouble, especially because me not always been talking what I did before, how I did financially very well, how always being very smart about saving in advance, even though when I was making very little at the beginning of my career. And so I wanna make this video, guys, to share more of this and open a little bit more your mind, guys, and give you more of a reality check. Because, guys, the brutal truth is that I think nobody really wants to address and nobody likes to talk about it. If you're living paycheck by paycheck, or at the end of the month, at the end of the year, you save very little on whatever you make, it basically means that you've been working for free. There's no difference. There is no freaking difference between working for free and you working and saving very little money. There is no difference. Yeah, okay, you might think Alessandra can buy those things, they can call little vacation, yes, but you're all buy things that are gonna make you happy on the very short term, and you're not building anything for the future. And if this is okay when you're 22, 23, as soon as you start to grow older, you need to start to think a little bit in a different way, okay, especially if you're thinking about having a family, kids and stuff like that, because, as I said, when something happen, and you're gonna be in big trouble. And it happens to some of my students as well, like more than one actually, that they're telling me that they lose their job and they don't have savings. And I ask them, how did it happen? How you're not saving? I know you have a quite good salary. Some people make $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 dollar a month. So it's like, okay, how are you not saving? Like how you're spending all this money? And it's like, okay, because I spend rent half of my salary, then I got a car, I got bills, I buy computer, video game, whatever, technology, I buy phone, whatever, right? So basically they spend them all. And I was like, I'm shocked about how you not even thinking about to manage your money for your future. I told them, if I was you, I will do this, this, and this, and I will squeeze all your expenses from this into this, right? And even though obviously it requires some sacrifice, because I even tell them, especially at the beginning, if you have no money, rent, for example, is a big part that is taking away all your savings. That's the first things I will cut it down, even to the cost where instead of renting like a small studio, a small apartment by myself, I will share with other people if this will cut the cost of rent in half, right? I wouldn't buy as many things because it will just be a waste of money. Especially at the beginning, you need to build something, a safety net for your future, right? And I can guarantee you, when every time I tell this to all the people that approach me with this kind of problem, how many times I realize that I go through their expenses and I said, hey, if I were in you and I were in this position, actually I was in a position where I was making a lot less than them, I would have saved this, and this. When I talked to them and I realized, oh yeah, actually it's true, I could have done all that, and maybe with a bit of sacrifice, yes, but I would have saved, you know, a few thousands, and not a few thousand, you would have saved $20,000-$30,000 each year if we would have done that. Because I did it, and that's why I was saving so much money. And a lot of people, like, they were like, yeah, but Alessandro, this is my first year, you know, like I don't make a lot of money, I make maybe $2,000 a month or something like that. It's like, hey, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. When I started my career, I was making $1,000 a month after taxes, and I was living in a city, Rome, in Italy. That is not exactly really expensive, really cheap. Okay, and so actually I was making more around 1,300 or something. Okay, and so I make my hell of a sacrifice at the beginning until I could. I was still living with my parents, but I couldn't to save rent. But I couldn't do that anymore. I was going outside of the city, in a small town outside of the city. And you know, I was sharing with other people. Okay, so I didn't stay by myself. I was sharing the apartment with other people to save even more money, even though I was really far away. And then I was commuting 1 hour to go to work. It was a hell of a sacrifice, guys. I can tell you, I was that tired, but I knew I had to build a safety net, especially when I don't make a lot of money. And I was doing it. You know, after the first year or something, I managed to save like 10,000 euro, $10,000, something like that. And then from the second year, I started to take also a small second job and everything, and this helped me eventually, okay? Because first of all, I was having a safety net, so in case I lose my job or something happen, I have money in my bank account. And now my life expense was very little, because I was, as I said, I was sharing like an apartment with different people and everything, so it cost very little, okay? Probably 300 euro a month, 250 or something like that. And so with how much money I was saving, I could survive for a few months. Even with just 1 month of saving, I could survive for 2 or 3 months, all right? And that was a good ratio for me. And obviously moving forward, I was working hard to increase the salary that I was making, doing side jobs, stuff like that. And another thing I wanted to say is that I wouldn't just save for the sake of saving money. I knew I was not very good as an animator. I knew I wanted to study animation, right? And those schools were expensive, and how I'm gonna afford that if you don't have money, right? And so part of the money that I save eventually helped me to study animation mentor, study with private mentors, stuff like that. And people today don't think that way anymore, honestly. I can guarantee you guys, a lot of guys sometimes approach and say, Alessandro, I wanna study with you privately, thinking about it. My service is even cheaper than as animation mentor or something like that, which is not, because studying privately is always gonna be more expensive eventually, because you have someone dedicated only to you, right? And when I tell them the price and everything, it's like, oh, Alessandro, but this is too expensive and everything. What should I do? Get a job? Get a job? Oh yes, but if I don't study animation, I cannot get a job in the animation industry, right? I didn't say you have to get a job in animation. I'm saying get any job. I don't care what it is. Just get a job and start to save money. Because if you don't have that, I'm sorry, it's very sad to say that, but in today's society, it is what it is. That's what you need money to do forward, to do study, to do whatever you want. That's how it is. So go, I don't care, go McDonald's, go Starbucks, go whatever you want, but just get a job. And even if the pay is low, try as much as you can to save it. I don't care if you have to go back to live with your parents, if you have to share with 3-4 people, and if you have to sacrifice not eating outside, not taking your coffee, whatever. If at the beginning you don't have the money to do what you want, you need to take those, and they're not magically appear out of nowhere, right? And as I said, it's also, it happened to some people that finally they get a job in animation. They are so excited, they get overconfident. Okay, it doesn't matter what is their salary, low and big or big, they start to spend it all, because now they think like, hey, I finally put my feet into the industry, like I'm comfortable, right, and everything. And a few months later, something happened, they lose their job. And now they were planning already all their future ahead, because they thought, okay, I have this safe job now, I can stay in a better place and everything. You cannot really think that way, because again, those things that you get fired or lay off or whatever can happen all the time, and you don't know when it's gonna happen, right? So don't, especially at the very beginning, don't get comfortable. You know, the only thing that can get you really comfortable, the only one, if you can have a lot of money in your bank account. That's the only thing, because nobody can touch it. If you have a lot of money, you don't have any debt, you don't have any collateral, you didn't take any loan or anything, then when you're safe. Because if you're losing your job, You know, whatever happened, even if you have an accident, God I hope it never happened to you guys, but you know, life, it is what it is, right? And maybe you have an accident, you cannot work for 3, 4, 6 months, right? It happened to a friend of mine. And if you have money, a lot of money in your bank account, then you can do whatever you want. And the thing is, at the beginning, especially when we don't make a lot of money, because a lot of artists at the beginning, we get paid very little, you need to do a lot more sacrifice to save, okay? But the good things, you know, if you keep this habit, the more you start to advance in your career, the more your salary goes higher. If you keep this habit, you're gonna save more and more and more. And so you're gonna find yourself that after 3, 4 years, you can manage to save like $100,000, even more if you're savage about that. It's only up to you. But that's the moment where eventually you can start to be a little bit more comfortable and enjoy a little bit more your life, right? You're more secure about your skill at work. You know what is your value and all those things, right? But unfortunately, guys, I can tell you a lot of people don't really think that way, and they're starting to get a lot of trouble. Some of them, they just happen suddenly during the COVID, not just related to animation, but other job as well. And it is a terrible situation to be. I'm not kidding you. Like, guys, 6 months ago, one of the guys reached to me, was talking to me, blah blah blah. They started to cry because like suddenly he have no money in the bank account. He couldn't pay rent. He was there with his girlfriend and everything. He started to cry in front of me, and I was really sorry. But when the situation happens too late, when you're asking for help when it's too late, there is very little that you can do, okay, except being desperate and taking the first job that someone's gonna give it to you. But you're gonna be in a desperate situation, so you have no leverage at that point. There was a few cases where a couple of guys reached to me at the very beginning of their career, after they've been working for a year. They reached to me and said, Alessandro, can you give me some suggestions? Can we do some consulting? Because I'm been working right now in the industry. I get paid very little. I'm not saving that much, and I'm that worried about this, especially because, you know, I don't know about pension, all those things. What should I do? I watch your videos. I know you're doing very well about savings. Those are the moments where I can help people the most, right? Because you approach me before the bad things happen, right? So you can start to plan things in advance, change your mentality, because at the end of the day, I think it's mostly about changing your mentality. Even better, if you started to think about those things that when you're studying, okay, at the beginning, even before looking for a job, because I do consider you should have this kind of mentality right before you start to get into a job, right? So when you go into a job, you already have your plan. Okay, you know, I'm gonna make this money. I wanna save this. I'm gonna, you know, tailor my lifestyle based on whatever spending I can afford to have, stuff like that. And it's something you need to be prepared before, because again, kids today don't really think, but not just kids, to be honest, guys, even like more older people, I feel like about the 40, 45, I was shocked when they told me like, hey, I have not much money saved or anything. It's like, you basically work 15 years for free for nothing. I mean, that's what it is, and they don't like to hear it, you know. So, but now it's not true. I buy this and buy that. Yeah, but what do you have now? If tomorrow you lose your job, what do you have? Nothing. Okay, you just have assets like a car or any other silly things that they evaluate very quickly. Okay, so those are not investment or anything. So they tend to be in a very bad situation. So I hope actually this video can reach younger people, or people maybe who can recognize in this situation. Maybe they want to do something to change, right? Okay, guys, different video today, a bit more serious tone, but I think this topic is a very important one, and we should talk more about this. And especially because, as I said, I'm very sad when people approach me, you know, for help, or like this concern, and then they told me they've been living the life like this for 6-7 years, and basically they just wasted all the experience because I didn't save anything. And I wish I could do something, but it's, you know, I can help it after the moment, but I wish they would approach me before. I could have done a lot more. And yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any question, let me know. See you next time. Ciao.